So much for Democrats leaning into the next generation. AOC was lobbying to become the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, and her opponent was Congressman Gerry Connolly, who's about twice her age. But in the end, Connolly defeated Ocasio-Cortez by 131 votes to 84.
The roll came open after current Oversight ranking member Jamie Raskin opted to run for the top Democratic spot on the Judiciary Committee instead. Connolly, who is 74, argued that the idea there was generational change afoot within the Democratic caucus was a, quote, false narrative, and that he and his colleagues were, quote, looking at capability, we are not looking at age.
He had the backing of several veteran lawmakers, including the not-to-be-trifled-with former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. What is more stunning is that Connolly recently revealed he has a form of cancer which will require aggressive treatment. In response to her loss, AOC posted on Blue Sky, "Tried my best. Sorry I couldn't pull it through, everyone. We live to fight another day."
Connolly, for his part, posted on X yesterday, "I thank my colleagues for their support and the confidence they've placed in me to lead House Democrats on the Oversight Committee." So this is probably a unfortunate blow for supporters of AOC, of which there are many. She is very popular among progressives and still some on the left, although I know others on the left are disappointed with her seeming pivot, not exactly to the center, but to try to play nicer with the establishment in hopes, I think, of winning a position just like this one. But sorry, generational change, you're going to have to wait on that.
And by quite a large margin as well. I mean, almost 50 vote margin that she lost by, which I was quite surprised by.
You thought it was going to be closer?
I thought it was going to be closer. I didn't necessarily think she was going to win, and Gerry Connolly had previously got the approval of the steering committee, which is important, and then it went to the full vote. But I thought it was going to be closer for a couple of reasons. One is, I think, the generational change argument is definitely out there, and not only on Capitol Hill, or not only in the Democratic Party. If we look at the results of the recent election, obviously Donald Trump made some inroads with younger voters. The Democratic advantage there diminishing. I would think it would be to Dems' advantage to have younger faces. The other thing is AOC is a very effective communicator. I understand that a lot of people who are politically opposed to her loathe her, and she inspires fervent disagreement among that cohort. But, I mean, she is beloved among the people who are fans of hers. I would argue she's a more effective communicator than the other squad members, which is why, you know, she's AOC and they aren't. And on a committee as important as this, or as maybe prominent as this, it seems to me there was a good political argument to be made for someone who is a potent communicator at its head. Didn't work, though.
I think she comes across, you know, I don't agree with her at all, but I think she comes across as genuine. I remember her asking her voters why they selected Trump and her, how, you know, trying to actually understand from a sincere, what is it about Trump that you see as fitting, you know, you support my views, what I'm trying to do for working people, and you think that's Trump too, and can you explain that? So I think she has a better understanding on some level of where the Democratic Party is headed. Now, at the same time, just, you know, changing the Democratic Party to give what young people everything they want would not necessarily be a winning strategy. The party needs to appeal to working class people, to minorities it's losing, probably on the grounds of like economic populism, which fits in with AOC, but then also the perception that they're, you know, too woke or culturally liberal, or just the faculty of Harvard or whatever is the whole party, is that's a bad influence, and that's also prominent among young people.
To knit together that point about wokeness and the point about AOC seeming to position herself at least as less of an outsider, there was, as you probably know, a mini controversy about, I think it was X rather than Blue Sky, her bio. She removed the pronouns from it, and she argued that it was something to do with character limits, which was an explanation that a lot of people were skeptical of, because it was seen, I think, as her moving away, or at least being open to move away from the ultra woke identity stuff. Now, she's still of the left, clearly. There is an argument in this committee rule that some Democrats didn't want someone who is such a lightning rod for conservative criticism at its head. I mean, if I had a vote, I would have headed in the other direction, but I understand why there is a reason, why that rationale exists.
Yeah, it's not like she's a lightning rod, excuse me, for criticism any more than like Nancy Pelosi herself, and in fact, less so than Nancy Pelosi herself, who was in charge of the Democratic caucus for however many years, and still seems to hold something of a grudge against AOC, exercising her still significant behind-the-scenes powers to tank this.
Yeah, and it seemed like AOC's chances declined from roughly the point that Pelosi got involved. I'm not saying that it would have been a completely different outcome, but the general shift away from AOC and toward the much more, I think he calls himself seasoned Gerry Conley, is definitely, you know, in keeping with Pelosi's views on this.
And then just in terms of the age thing, I mean, you mentioned in your read that he has cancer, he's going to have an operation. Of course, wish him all the best, and I'm sure it will be a successful operation, a successful recovery. But at a time where, you know, we've just talked a lot about how Democratic leadership, some Republican leadership as well, it's not necessarily a partisan thing, but it's certainly holding the Democrats back more in this recent election cycle, having leadership that is so old and seen as incapable, and in some cases literally incapable, when we get to the example of our president, Joe Biden. That seems like an interesting choice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, on the Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin supplanted Jerry Nadler, or will do once the new Congress is sworn in. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head what age Jamie Raskin is, but certainly it's a little bit of a stretch to consider him the more youthful choice. He's more youthful than Jerry Nadler, but he's not exactly, you know, he's in his 60s, so he's not exactly, you know, in the first flush of youth.
Indeed. All right, we've got more to come today on Rising. Please stay with us.